I have such respect for women. I cherish women.
An obvious lie, and we know this from many women, including...
It was a real shock when all of a sudden his hands were all over me. He was like an octopus. It was like he had 6 arms. He was all over the place. But it's when he started putting his hand up my skirt. And that was it. That was it. I was out of there. I wish the stewardess would come and rescue me. And then I decided, I got up, I got my purse, and I said, I'm going back to my seat and coach.
What do you think of this? This is sort of, back, it's sort of interesting, evocative of the time, because we used to say stewardess, first of all, now we say flight attendant, but just it gives you that sense of history. But this woman is not a show-off. She's just telling what happened so we can know it.
Yeah, and it's sort of, it makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
No.
Jessica leads, but history shows us even JD Vance doesn't believe the man he's running with.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Awful framing, awful political instincts.
The really sad thing is he said that after Chasten and I had been through a fairly heartbreaking setback in our adoption journey. He couldn't have known that, but maybe that's why you shouldn't be talking about other people's children. And it's not about his kids or my kids or the vice president's family. It's about your family, people's families whose well-being will depend on whether we go into a future led by somebody like Kamala Harris, or do you want your children to grow up in a country defined by a return to the chaos and recrimination and cruelty that was the hallmark of the Trump era?
The one thing I like about Donald Trump, John, is that he actually will talk to anybody, but just because you talk to somebody doesn't mean you endorse their views. And look, I mean, Donald Trump spent a lot of quality time with my wife. Every time he sees her, he gives her a hug, tells her she's beautiful, and jokes around with her a little bit. I'm not at all worried.
Weird. Really, really weird, considering the question was about this guy.
I believe that organized Jewry is extremely influential in the United States. We need to go back to burning women alive more. You know, oh, you haven't had sex. It's like, well, I haven't chosen to do that yet. You know, I'm choosing instead to be an historical figure. I'm choosing instead to lead an historical right-wing movement. So it's a cope. But anyway, I'm an incel. I am a proud incel.
And pertain to this.
Donald Trump facing growing backlash tonight to his dinner last week with prominent white nationalist Nick Fuentes at his private Mar-a-Lago club.
So why would Vance make this incredibly odd pivot? I mean, how bad is he at this?
What you find consistently is that many of the most unhappy and most miserable and most angry people in our media are childless adults. Let's just be honest about it. Because look, the elite model, the American dream to the elites is get as much credentials as you can, get as much money as you can, get the most prestigious job, and that's where you're gonna find your self-worth. But I gotta be honest with you, most of our mainstream reporters are not impressive enough to find a lot of self-meaning in their jobs.
Now that is rich.
Even Friends star Jennifer Aniston, who's spoken publicly about her struggles with infertility, writing on Instagram, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day.
Do you know how much of a POS you gotta be for Rachel to come after you in real life?
8 years ago, Donald Trump had everything: fame, fortune, family, friends. He gave up the easy life so that we could get our country back. He traded everything he had for unjust persecution, for slander and scorn from the fake news, all for this country, for you and me. They couldn't beat him politically, so they tried to bankrupt him. They failed at that, so they tried to impeach him. They failed at that, so they tried to put him in prison. They even tried to kill him. But as sure as the American flag still waves in our beautiful sky, Donald Trump still stands.
I mean, be for real here. Come on, man. Be for freaking real. Who tried to unalive him, JD?
Crooks lived in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, about an hour's drive south of Butler, where the rally took place.
Thomas Crooks.
He graduated from Bethel Park High School in 2022. He seemed to have little social media presence or record of political activism.
He was quiet, but he was just bullied. He was bullied so much. He'd wear hunting outfits sometimes.
Pennsylvania voting records show that he was a registered Republican.
I asked Vance if he thought anti-abortion laws should include exceptions for rape or incest.
Look, I think two wrongs don't make a right. At the end of the day, we're talking about an unborn baby. What kind of society do we want to have? A society that looks at unborn babies as inconveniences to be discarded?
Should a woman be forced to carry a child to term after she has been the victim of incest or rape?
Look, my view on this has been very clear, and I think the question betrays a certain presumption that's wrong. It's not whether a woman should be forced to bring a child to term, it's whether a child should be allowed to live, even though the circumstances of that child's birth are somehow inconvenient or a problem to the society. The question really to me is about the baby. We want women to have opportunities, we want women to have choices, but above all, we want women and young boys in the womb to have the right to life.
We read at least a couple articles every week of young people, underage girls who have been raped, or women who have had significant problems with their pregnancy, not be able to get help in the state. They got to go to Indiana, they got to go to Illinois, and that's not good enough for JD Vance. He supports a national abortion ban in which he wants women to have to get a passport and go to Canada. We've got to have some moderation on this issue. He's got a very extreme position. JD, you called rape inconvenient, right? Rape is not inconvenient. It's a significant tragedy. And he thinks that we should have Ohio state law, which says if you're raped or pregnant through incest, that you should be forced to have the baby.
You have said in the past that you compared abortion to slavery, even in the case of the 10-year-old Ohio girl that made headlines across the country. You said two wrongs don't make a right.
He's a coward who wants to control women's bodies.
The zoo has come to town. Thank you for letting us come in here. I'm sorry, man. Yeah. She doesn't want to be on film, guys, so just cut her out of anything. Appreciate that, man. I'm good again. How long are you working?
I've been here since the beginning of July.
Okay.
Okay,
good. How about you, sir?
Almost 2 years.
Okay, good. Just everything, yeah. I mean, a lot of glazed here, some sprinkle stuff, some of these cinnamon rolls, whatever Mike's doing. How long has this place been around?
About 4 years.
About 4 years? Okay. How long have you been here?
A little over 6 months.
Okay, good.
And most of all, he's weird as
So why do you carry that flag? Because this is my heritage. My family fought to save their farm under this flag. Who was working that farm?
My
family was. Who was working the farm? They were poor. Do you know how much a slave cost back then?
It is truly appalling to see the lengths some people will go to defend treasonous, racist losers. Yet it's still sadly not that surprising given the deliberate effort to whitewash the realities of the Civil War and why it happened in the first place.
Keep it flying? And why do you want to keep it flying?
Why would anybody want to erase our heritage?
Well, some people would say that flag symbolizes racism, it symbolizes slavery, and they might have some valid points there.
That's their opinion, they're welcome to their opinion if they want it.
Are you pro-slavery or against slavery?
I have no comment. Thank you for the interview.
Case in point, even when presented with the clearest moral choice possible, they can't help but do the mental gymnastics necessary to avoid confronting the reality of their position, providing further evidence that this behavior has been taught and passed down through the generations.
The blood in my teeth, the blood on my hands, is no comparison to the southern blood that runs through my veins. Joe Lindler was hit during the brawl. To him, racism has no part in the flag.
But I'm going to tell you one thing. I ain't sitting down. This will just make me walk taller.
We do have tension, we do have feelings, and we do have emotions.
Just because 9 people lost their lives in a church in Charleston, which I'm not downplaying at all, still a tragedy, has nothing to do with that flag standing up there.
Now, recall the push to remove Confederate flags from the South Carolina State House following the massacre at the Emmanuel African Methodist Church, a historically black church in Charleston that left 9 black worshipers dead at the hands of a white supremacist shooter. The flag would eventually come down for good after the one and only Nimrata Haley changed her mind following the shooting and public pressure, which brings us to legendary college football head coach Steve Spurrier.
I came out back in 07 or 08, something like that, at a function saying, I hope we remove the flag. But it took a while. Unfortunately, it took that terrible shooting in Charleston to get it started. We all commend, praise our governor for leading the move to have it removed. And I think it helps our state immensely.
Spurrier made the statement just days after the flag was officially removed, but his comments from an awards dinner almost a decade before this press conference showed how passionate he really was about the flag's removal. He was quoted saying that a game against Tennessee featured on ESPN's College Game Day was ruined by some clown waving that damn Confederate flag. It was embarrassing to me, and I know embarrassing to our state. I realize I'm not supposed to get in the political arena as a football coach, but if anybody were ever to ask me about that damn Confederate flag, I would say we need to get rid of it. I've been told not to talk about that, but if anyone were ever to ask me about it, I certainly wish we could get rid of it. Having someone with the credentials as Spurrier say this while coaching the state's largest public university can't be understated. And while he rarely publicly dipped into politics throughout his career, another recent event forced him to speak out yet again.
Everybody says hearts and prayers go out. Why in the world in America are you eligible to walk into a gun store and buy an AR-15 rifle?
Because gun manufacturers, the gun lobby, and Republican politicians at the federal and state levels all financially benefit from our country's gun culture and the endless cycle of violence said culture has created. To them, profits always outweigh human life. Now more from Spurrier.
They should have a sign. If you need a gun for mass school shootings, here's your AR-15. We'll give you a discount. Why don't they just put that sign up there? That's the only thing they're used for. You don't need them for self-defense. And yet we sit here and say, oh, blah, 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 blah. We're messed up in America to allow sick people to have these guns. And they ain't going to stop. They ain't going to stop until they get all these guns out of the way. You can carry a 6-shooter, protect yourself, which we're all for, but these AR-15s are for mass shootings in the schools, and we sit here and allow it to happen in America. Makes me sick.
Trust us, it makes us sick too. And we want nothing more than the common sense gun law reform Spurrier is suggesting to be put in place. But until our elected officials get serious about quelling corruption and serving us voters instead of their donors and their own self-interests, we may never see the reforms we so desperately need, but that won't stop us from fighting for them. As of the 2022 election cycle, gun rights lobbying groups have drastically outspent gun control lobbying groups and have thrown millions upon millions of dollars into ensuring that we will continue to see more gun violence in the country. And so far during this year's election cycle, the top 9 gun rights lobbying groups like NSSF, NRA, and GOA have thrown a combined $6.4 million at exclusively Republicans, with Donald Trump leading the pack at around $730,000 received, with Rafael Ted Cruz, Speaker Mike Johnson, and the deplorables Elise Stefanik and Marsha Blackburn rounding out the top 5 this cycle. The icing on the cake is that nearly 50% of current gun rights lobbyists were once federal government employees. The issue of gun violence has and always will be explained by following the money. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day. This seems big.
WNBA star Derica Hamby filed a federal discrimination lawsuit yesterday against the league and the Las Vegas Aces. Hamby claims her former team and head coach Becky Hammon withheld benefits and questioned her commitment to the team when they found out she was pregnant.
There are many major players, from Hamby to former San Antonio Spurs assistant coach Becky Hammon, who coaches the Las Vegas Aces.
In a federal lawsuit, Hamby says back in 2022, to entice her to re-sign with the team, the Aces offered her housing and tuition for her daughter's private school. But Hamby claims everything changed when she told them she was pregnant. After that, she says she was forced to vacate the housing. The school's tuition wasn't paid, and she claims she was bullied by the coaching staff.
Coach Hammon would deny the allegations.
Obviously, she has a different opinion, and she's allowed to have that opinion. But that's not how I saw things go down with my conversation.
While her lawyer would say this to ABC.
This lawsuit raises very real questions about whether a league that exists to empower women understands that women have the right to control their own destiny.
Let's start from the beginning. Hamby was a member of the Las Vegas Aces. She would win 2 Six-Woman of the Year awards, be named to the All-Star team multiple times, and of course go on to win a WNBA championship with her team. Though in the suit, which I have read, there are allegations that are troubling to say the least. Let's go to page 5, line 29. Hamby's attorneys note she was set to hit free agency, but the Aces promised her certain benefits and inducements outside of the contract to entice her to return. One of the supposed agreements, per the suit, was private school for the player's daughter to be covered, in addition to housing accommodations in order to assist with childcare when the player would be traveling for road games. Thus, Hamby would sign another contract with the Aces. Around July 18th, Hamby learned she was pregnant with her second child. The suit says less than 1 month later, she informed team staff, including head coach Becky Hammon. September 18th, they win the chip. They're dancing. They're celebrating. They have the team parade. Hamby announced to the public at the parade that she is pregnant. That's when she claims she was discriminated against and subsequently traded from the Aces, who have star power on top of star power, to the LA Sparks. In September of 2022, Hamby's daughter's tuition was due, and when she inquired, the GM, team president, said they were working on it but didn't give a date. Again, I reiterate, this is all according to the lawsuit. Next month, she was told to vacate the team-provided housing. There would not be a reason given for this decision. Now, remember that clip we played of Becky Hammon via ABC News? Well, the suit claims it was indeed a phone call, as Hammon did state, and she would allegedly ask Hamby whether she planned her pregnancy. When Hamby responded she did not, head coach Hammon told Hamby that she was not taking proper precautions not to get pregnant. If this is true, that is not a step but a gallop over the line. The same call was outlined by Front Office Sports. Hammon allegedly told Hamby the team needed bodies and labeled her a prolific player a question mark, and said she wasn't taking the offseason seriously. In addition, the suit says Hamby asked her coach, quote, "You're trading me because I'm pregnant," close quote. Hammon responded, "What do you want me to do?" There are certain protections that these players have and should have further. And if this was said, it shows throughout time that the players are not valued and they are just viewed as a number. They are viewed as a body in order for people to win and get paid, including ownership. Another important note during the call: by signing the extension, Hamby implicitly agreed she would not get pregnant during the 2-year extension period, part of the suit. That is what they are indicating here. On January 21st of 2023, the trade was made. She was heading to Los Angeles. She'd take to Instagram and write in summary, being traded is a part of the business. Being lied to, bullied, manipulated, and discriminated against is not. We fought for provisions that would finally support and protect player parents. This cannot now be used against me. It was liked by many. And it blew the lid on some of the things that I'm sure many feared. In short, what is she referring to? The CBA of 2020 improved the lives of parents who play in the WNBA. And here is what they fought for and got: a full guaranteed salary while on parental leave. A 2-bedroom apartment if children are under the age of 13 years old. Receive a $5,000 childcare stipend, and veteran players would receive reimbursement for family planning expenses, i.e. freezing eggs, surrogacy, fertility treatments, and adoption, up to $60,000. This is all a humongous step in the right direction, especially for the protection of the players and just providing a better quality of life, okay? On March 6th, Hamby would give birth to her son, Legend. 2 months later, the league would take the Las Vegas Aces' first-round pick away from them. In addition, head coach Becky Hammon would be suspended 2 games without pay. Via The Athletic, Hammon has vehemently denied any wrongdoing in the past. She would say, I handled Hamby with care from day one when she told me, and she knows that. Once I made the phone call that the decision has been made to move her, that's when everything kind of fell apart. That was at a news conference in May of 2023. Furthermore, the WNBA announced its findings, said it interviewed 33 people, in addition to reviewing text messages, emails, and other documents as it pertains to this suit. In Monday's lawsuit, however, Hamby alleged the W failed to properly investigate her claims of workplace discrimination, did not interview key witnesses in connection, notably not interviewing any Las Vegas players, or take future steps to deter conduct by Hammon. My question then is, it's like the Office Space meme, like, what would you say you do here? You're not interviewing any of the players. I understand if they want to retain counsel, totally fine. I think the W would say that. They would say that to, in essence, as an act of good faith, show that they're not leaving any stone unturned. If they didn't interview the players, who else didn't they interview? Who else did they not contact as a whole? I have many questions on this. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, upon her return from the Paris Olympics, told Robin Roberts, Hamby is such a great player in this league, and she just represented our country. She's great, 2 children, great mom. I've spent a lot of time with her over the last couple of years. Obviously, we'll review it. Obviously. Hamby would go on to play 40 games for the Sparks during the 23 season, averaging about 9 and 6. She's currently enjoying a career in LA. Recently won bronze with Team USA's I think they called it 3x3, but it's 3v3 squad at the Paris Olympics. This is huge, considering that we know how these players feel on so many fronts. My question is, if it doesn't involve Kelly Loeffler, and it doesn't involve politics, but it involves themselves, will they stand up for this player, or do many not want to get involved? Because here is the thing. If this were to happen to one player, it could happen to all players. This is a suit that is going on right now. These are allegations that are being thrown at Coach Becky Hammon, the Las Vegas Aces, and the W as a whole. As more comes out and transpires, we will bring that to you.
If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.